One type of puzzle that people occasionally want to try is to require a map or a compass to be able to navigate through the game space. This is a little bit of an issue in a text adventure because we navigate by going north, south, east, and west, or northwest, or up or down, or whatever. So it's kind of assumed that we have a built-in compass because we're using those directions to navigate. However, we can do something like we can require that a player has a compass in order to successfully get through a location. So we can look at something like that. So let's actually do an example of requiring a map or a compass. And here's what we've got. So we have a clearing, a forest, and a location called South of Castle. And we've put a compass in the game here. And what we're going to do is, when the player tries to move into the forest, we're going to check to see, does the player have the compass? If the player does not have the compass, it will print out a message. Without it, with no way to navigate, you fumble around in the forest, eventually ending up back where you started. So we're just going to kind of assume that the player went off on some little voyage, got turned all around, and came right back out. So this is what we're going to try to model. So the player has to have the compass in order to get into the forest. So let's pop over to Lantern now. So here's our little test game, and let me launch the player here, and then you can see that here's our clearing, and if I try to go east, now I'm in the forest, and now I can go through to the castle and go back to the clearing. Should probably put a description on this clearing. This is a big clearing with a forest to the east or something like that. There, done. All right, so now what we're going to do is go to our verb check tab here. So we're going to create a check that says, hey, when the player tries to move east, check to see if this condition exists. And that condition is going to be that the player is in the clearing and that the player doesn't have the compass. Because if both of those are true, we don't want the player to be able to move. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a check here called check _ compass, and I'm going to click add check. So now I can put in my code here. Here for this particular check. So I'm actually going to delete this out, and I'm going to right click, and you'll notice here there's a little code stub, require a map or compass to move successfully. So I'm going to click that, I'm going to select that, and let's take a look at what that's doing. It's saying if the player's location is some room. Okay, so we're going to change some room. And what are we going to change it to? We're going to change it to the clearing where the player starts. Remember our map. There's our map, right? So if we're here and we're trying to go east, we want to check, does the player have the compass? So that's what we're going to do. So here we are back in Lantern. So we're going to say, okay, if the player's location is, I think that it was the clearing. So if the player's in the clearing, now we're going to do this code. So we're going to say if the compass's location isn't the player, which means the player doesn't have the compass, then we're going to print out, with nothing to guide you, you stumble around the forest, eventually ending up where you started. Oh, and I can see there's a little bug here. We need to have the word stop, semicolon. So I will fix that. Now this means the check fails. Stop processing this command. Don't let the player move. So we're going to check to see if the player's in the clearing, and then inside of here we're going to say, okay, does the player not have the compass? And if that's true, then we're going to print out this message: you fumble around in the forest, eventually ending up where you started. And you can change that text as needed. Change this to the room where you're going to do the check, and change this to the thing that the player has to have. And now all we have to do is wire this up to our verb. So this check is going to run when the player tries to go east. Remember our map. The player is going to try to go east from the clearing into the forest. That's where we're going to check, does the player have the compass? Or does the player not have the compass? So let's find the verb east. And we're going to go down here to our check compass, and we're going to click add. So now when we try to go east, we're going to do our regular move check, which, makes sure the player's not trying to move into a wall or a door, or a closed door or something like that. And then if that check passes, we'll run the next check. And that's going to check to see, does the player have the compass? And if the player does not have the compass and the player is in the clearing, we'll print out this message and stop. We're not going to let the player move. We're trying to intercept that movement command before it gets carried out. We're saying, you know what? We're not going to move. That's the purpose of these checks. It's to kind of prevent an action from being carried out. So let's run this now and see if it works. Here's our little test game. Now, if I try to go east, remember, it's going to run our check compass function, and that's going to say, hey, are we in the clearing? Yep, that's true. Does the player not have the compass, or is the compass not in the player? Well, that's true. So now we'll do what's inside of those curly braces, which is print this message and stop. So if I go east now, it'll say, with nothing to guide you, you stumble around the forest, eventually ending up where you started. And where am I now, right? I'm still in the clearing. I haven't moved. Why? Because we ran that stop command. We did not process that move command. We intercepted it and halted it before it had a chance to get carried out. All right, so now I type look, there's a compass here, take compass. Now what's going to happen? Well, okay, is the player in the clearing? Yeah, that's still true. Does the player not have the compass, or is the compass somewhere other than the player? Well, this is now false. This condition is false, so we won't execute this code. So now, can't take the compass. All right, make the compass portable. No, I just made the clearing portable. I don't want to be able to pick up the clearing. I want to be able to pick up the compass. There we go, make it portable, and run. And now let's say take compass, taken. You are carrying a compass, awesome. And now if I try to go east, now I'm in the forest. You are standing in a dark tangled forest. To the east, the compass, or it appears to thin, awesome. So now I can go through my forest. I drop the compass, dropped. You see now now that check fails, right? With nothing to guide you, you stumble around the forest, eventually ending up where you started. So that is how we can do kind of a compass, or you could change the compass to a map, and then you could have that's sort of requiring maybe the player to have a GPS or something. It's kind of like, how would they navigate a space that's too tangled to navigate, even if they did have some sort of sense of north, south, east, west. So there's your compass puzzle, and the only kind of caveat there would be that, according to our map, that can only happen when the player is going east. But if that could happen if the player was trying to move in any direction, then you'd have to add that check to all these other movement verbs as well. But in our map, this is only relevant if we're trying to move east. So that's why we only put the check on going east. So that's it. That's how to make a puzzle that requires the player to have a compass. If you have any other ideas, or you have a tutorial that you can't find, or you need help with something, just let me know. I'll be happy to make more tutorials.